Hey there, thank you for staying with us on a Sunday night, bringing the weekend to a close, a wintry weekend for sure. Cold temps, warm conversation coming up though. Lily Zhao, Tim Van Voorn, Brandon Cruz. It's been a while since all three of us were in studio, so it's kind of fun, and we're glad you're here too. Here's our starting lineup. Bob Uecker passes away this week, and we remember Mr. Baseball. There's a lot to unpack about this football season in Green Bay. Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst do it, so we will too. A say what to make you smile. The points pile up for the Bucks. And our high school hotshot would like to see the powder pile up.
One of one. There's nobody like him ever, and no one will ever be like him again. Hall of Fame broadcaster, great baseball player in his own right, funny as all get out, kind and compassionate with grace. He was always the kind of person that no matter when you walked into a room with him, he made you feel like you belonged in that room.
Jeff Levering there, Brewers radio and now television broadcaster, one of the young voices who is carrying on the legacy of tremendous broadcasting in the Milwaukee area. And so many people have come and gone in that opportunity with that context. And yet Bob Uecker was there through all of them, the constant. Bob Uecker passes away this week at the age of 90. We'll spend a little time reminiscing here as we get the Blitz going this week. I think that's only appropriate. And Brandon, one of one, a true original. How would you sum up Bob Uecker?
Amazing, because he did so much. I mean, you listen to a game and his style of broadcasting isn't really there anymore. He was able to weave stories throughout the play-by-play. You'd know what was going on, yet you'd be hearing a fantastic story from maybe his playing days or something he was experiencing, and yet you still knew where the Brewers were in the game, what was going on, who was doing what. He was just fantastic. And then bigger picture, as you heard Jeff Levering say there, he touched so many different people in such a profound way that the fact that he was able to connect with more than just baseball fans. He connected with Milwaukee, outer Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the country. I grew up in California, and we knew and loved Bob Uecker out there and did not get to listen to him as easily because we didn't have satellite radio back then where you could do it.
You talk about satellite radio. Obviously, nowadays, every game's on TV. Bob Uecker goes back to that wasn't the case. And so for a lot of people, Bob Uecker was there every single night. That was the way you connected to the Milwaukee Brewers. I know, Lily, you're much younger than some of us who may feel that way, but that's why he was such a companion. I describe him as a companion.
He really is, and he kind of felt like he was in your living room, right? When you're watching baseball games, listening to baseball games, it just felt like Bob Uecker was there with you on the couch, talking about the game, talking about really funny anecdotes, bringing up really good stories. And I had a chat with Jeff Levering this week, and I just love the part where he said what made Bob Uecker special was the fact that, yeah, all the big blowout wins that the Brewers had, that would be fun to watch and hear Bob Uecker talk, but it was those close games, the games that were kind of mundane, it's where you shined. I mean, he really was so special in the booth, and he's the voice of summer, the voice of baseball for so many reasons. And it was the fact that he was able to do this for 54 years on a handshake. I mean, that's just how impressive Bob Uecker was, and just the fact that he touched everybody through his almost 7 decades in baseball has been so impressive. But yeah, he just was the ultimate face of baseball, and he will sorely be missed.
You hit 200. It actually was better for his post-baseball career than if he hit 285.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But to get to the majors and hit 200, you have to be an absolute elite athlete and performer and competitor. Anyway, to me, he was a competitor to the very end because of what he did just to get to the booth to call those games. But to be in the upper echelon of your profession, baseball or entertainer, comedian, broadcaster, whatever it is, until you're 90 years old, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. He had this, he made it look easy. And that's what was, in all these lines here, ad-libbed in that movie. And the fact that Johnny Carson had him on more than 100 times because he was so funny. I mean, he could turn anything so quickly into a self-deprecating joke that had you laughing forever. And so many different things that you would remember, the one-liners or the stories that made him seem a little less than, were always great. And we talked about him being such a voice of baseball here and everywhere else. He also was a generational through line. I mean, people look back and say, my dad, my grandpa, my grandma, all listened to him, and he was part of it. And I know that my wife talks about how it was a connection to her dad, and that she was happy that our son got to see Bob Uecker and listen to him a little bit. I mean, that's pretty huge.
And Lily, he was from Milwaukee. He was around the world. He was, as Brandon mentioned, known everywhere. But he always came back to Milwaukee, and he was so proud of Milwaukee.
He really was, and that's why I think it was such a sight to see his statue at American Family Field when he passed, just the amount of flowers, the Miller Lite cans that were out there celebrating him, just remembering the fact that he stayed loyal to Milwaukee until the very end. I mean, he could have gone anywhere, he could have broadcast anywhere. He was a legend in that right, but he made sure to stick to his home roots, and that's why players loved him as well. The fact that he was so loyal to the Milwaukee Brewers until the end just really spoke about his character and the fact that he loved this state and this town so much.
Let's listen to Bob before we move on to the next topic.
Well, New York down, they did it, and the crew will have it end here tonight.
Really a crushing end to what was a fabulous season for the Milwaukee Brewers.
I'm telling you, that one had some sting on it.
Boy, that line certainly resonates, does it not? Bob Uecker, Mr. Baseball. We will move on to the second half of the first segment of our program here, the Fox 6 Sports Blitz, and that is the Green Bay Packers. Their season comes to an end, of course. Last week in Philadelphia. This week, Matt LaFleur wraps things up. Brian Gutekunst wrapped things up. All the media members wrapped things up alongside the GM and the head coach. Is there a number one factor that you will remember about this season, maybe falling where you thought it would or not quite where you thought it would, Lily?
You know what, I think or I should say me coming into the season, I think, again, just based off of how they played in Dallas in that wild card game, it just was the expectations, I think, were very high for this ball club. It was a young team, the youngest going into the playoffs that season, and the way that they beat the Cowboys, I think there was a lot of expectation this year to see that continue. Not saying they didn't, but it just was a year where the Packers had a lot of chances to have a marquee win, to go down there and beat a good team, and they didn't do so. So you have to wonder that there was that sophomore jump that a lot of these guys did not make, and I think the Packers are hoping that is the case next season. But it wasn't the most memorable season in terms of just those big wins that they got, but I think it was the fact that this team is still young. They got double-digit wins. They went back to the playoffs. They added two key really good free agents. You have a good defensive coordinator, so they're making the steps to be in the right direction, and maybe they are 1 year away. Maybe that is the case, and that's what we learned about the Packers this season, but I think you add a couple more pieces, and this team could be special next year.
Funny, we're looking at this video. It's Jaden Reed dropped the ball and pounding. Dontavian Wicks pounding the ball. Romeo Doubs just missed on the play. It was kind of a just miss.
Yeah, it was an inconsistent season. I mean, you would look at things and go, oh my goodness, they started this game so fast, jumped out to a big lead, and then for 2 or 3 weeks after that, they couldn't get out of their own way in the first half, and you just didn't know which team was going to show up. The one consistent part was the defense was able to get takeaways this year, and I think that was very impressive compared to what we have seen in recent years. But it just wasn't enough because they couldn't consistently move the ball on offense. So you had to look at this as, there were some improvements defensively. They didn't get to the quarterback a whole lot, but they did get the ball a lot. So that to me was what was the good part. The inconsistent offense is what kind of defined the season for me.
Let's talk about some of the aspects of that then. Matt LaFleur was up there this week at his season-ending press conference. I thought he made a conscious effort to take a light tone, didn't want to be dour about anything or doom and gloom. One of the things he was positive about, as was General Manager Brian Gutekunst, was defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, who's interviewed for the Jets on a head coaching opportunity. Did he have the impact that you expected, or maybe more so?
I think so, and I think the fact that Matt LaFleur brought Jeff Hafley on, I think he knew that one day, or maybe a couple years down the line, that Jeff Hafley would get head coaching looks. Maybe he didn't expect it to be after one season with his team, but I thought what was really interesting was the fact that Matt LaFleur said they had a certain set of expectations for what the defense would look like this season. It wasn't that they didn't meet expectations, but they had to pivot what their vision of the defense was, and it wasn't to say that it wasn't good or bad, but it was certainly an improvement from what we have seen in the past under Joe Barry. I think this defense made a big leap under Jeff Hafley. You saw the takeaways are a big portion of that defense, just to punch the ball out, get the ball. But I think, you add a couple pass rushers up front, this defense is special. But I think this defense as a whole, the speed they played with, the talent they had, certainly made a big leap this year.
We're talking about a big leap. Brandon McManus provided one for the Packers as he came in. Brian Gutekunst saying he wants him back for next year. Would you invest significantly in a kicker?
If I'm this team, yes, I think so, because we remember talking on and on and on about the inconsistency, again, the word inconsistent coming up, but the fact that they could not rely on so many different kickers along the way. Enter Brandon McManus, and that problem was erased. And he really solidified and made things a lot easier on the offense, a lot easier on the coaching staff. So to me, you really do look at that and go, you know what? This could be a game decided by a field goal. I'm going to put the money down to make sure we get that field goal.
Speaking of money, Brandon McManus is going to make a lot more of it next year than he did this year. All right, we're going to come back with a lot more of the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. Hope you will as well.
You know, every day when I come downstairs from the game, broadcasting the game, all those kids are downstairs. And I know them. I get to know them, and I talk to them every day. And they kind of look for me now, you know, once in a while. When I come downstairs, or if I don't talk to them, they wonder where I was. So that's all part of it. You know, that's all what we're doing today, and it's totally different than it was years ago when I was active, so to speak.
Another game Friday.
You play like an old man.
We got another game Saturday.
That's a little bit of a trick question.
We got another game Sunday.
Being bit to death by a duck.
We got another game Monday.
The guy's baking a pizza back there.
It don't stop, right?
So you get to go to the Cactus League Hall of Fame. What was this day like?
It was great. I served food. I didn't get the award. I was serving dinner, lunch. They asked me to come and serve lunch to the guys who got the Hall of Fame award. No, it was great. Gaylord Perry and Frank Robinson, two great friends.
2018. Bob goes into the Cactus League Hall of Fame with the players he mentioned there. He did get the award, but he was serving lunch. It was very strange. I do love that. That's the one thing that I will always remember about him is that self-deprecating humor that always was something that you were trying to figure out, where was he going to go with this? It was like that. Well, let's get back to Packers talk and what this team's going to look like next year. I think one of the biggest questions, Tim, is are we going to see Jair Alexander ever play for this team again?
I would be surprised. I think that the die has kind of been cast there. Availability is such a thing that we talk about all the time. You can't praise that and talk about that and stress that and then erase that from your decision-making process. Jair Alexander is a talented player. I thought there would be a different Jair Alexander this year based on what we had heard from him in the wake of last season. And unfortunately, there really wasn't. You know, he played a little bit. He played fine. He missed a lot.
How big of an impact, positive, negative, or indifferent, did he make in that locker room?
I think it was positive from the player's standpoint, and of course, you know, not sure about the coaches and kind of how that went with them. But again, Brian Gutekunst asked if there was any sort of, disconnect with them and Jair. He said no. But I think with the players, I think they really loved Jair, his, kind of sarcastic sense of humor and the way he led, and the fact that he was a two-time Pro Bowler, and the fact that he was a good player, so they could look after him. Again, it's a young team, with the exception of Xavier McKinney, and so these guys looked up to him and looked up to Jair and his talent to see, hey, this is kind of the standard we want to play at. So I think he will be missed in the locker room next season if he doesn't come back.
Yeah, and cornerback, not a big position in the draft, it looks like at this point. It will be interesting to see where he goes, what happens there. Defensively, too, Quay Walker, what do you think about where he stands right now with this team? Because he really had some impactful play.
He had some impactful play, missed some time, he's still developing, I think, in that role that the Packers want him to be in terms of starring in the middle of that defense. But they're very high on him. He's a former first-round draft choice. They believe in him. Packers fans had not always, but the Packers really have been behind him. They're committed to him for next year.
And then when you look at what the job is for Brian Gutekunst, he's got a lot of cap room, it looks like, and he's got a draft that might or might not really suit his needs. How does he attack this offseason? Is it free agents, or is it mainly through the draft?
Well, I think with the Packers, we know it's draft and develop, so let's start with the draft, right? Let's see what they have there, but I think this team needs a receiver. I think they need a cornerback. I think they need an edge rusher, so I think you start there. You start with those three positions, and I know that there's, reports that they've been interested in T. Higgins from the Bengals, and could he be the guy? But like Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst have said, they don't really traditionally need that number one receiver as it's known to be, so we shall see what direction they go there in terms of free agency, but I think those three positions are hopefully the ones that he tackles this offseason.
And do you see this as a deep draft for the Packers, Tim?
Not particularly, but they have picks, and they believe in their scouting system. So they will find players they think can come to and contribute to this roster. There will be turnover heading into next season, maybe more than people expect.
Yeah, it's good. This is the best part of football if your team isn't playing, to try to figure out what's going to come next. Well, former Badgers running back Monty Ball, well, guess what? He's headed to the College Football Hall of Fame as a member of the class of 2025. He finished his career at Wisconsin as the NCAA record holder for career touchdowns and career rushing touchdowns. The two-time All-American ranked second in the Badgers records book for rushing yards behind Hall of Famer Ron Dane. And it was quite a week for the Bucs. Get this, they averaged 126 points over their 4-game homestand where they were a perfect 4-0. They did it mainly with big first quarter runs, and that allowed them to never let teams get back into the game after that. They're currently 4th in the Eastern Conference standings. They are at the midway point of the season. And when we come back, it's time to embrace the winter weather with this week's High School Hot Shot.
Welcome back. While many try to avoid the cold and stay inside, this high school senior loves to get out and enjoy the air whipping by. She's also a multi-sport athlete with a flash of royalty, and that's why she is this week's Fox 6 High School Hot Shot.
Hey everyone, I'm Zoe Morgan. I'm an alpine ski racer from Oconomowoc High School. My dad is a very funny human being, and he wanted my initials to be Zoom. So they named me Zoe, and then my 2 middle names with an O, and my last name is Morgan, so it's Zoom. Actually, no, my sister did not get as cool as names as me. I started skiing when I was 3 years old, just on a little hill like in our neighborhood. I love the adrenaline. I love it so much. It brings me so much joy just to like feel the rush, the cold, the wind. I've been called an adrenaline junkie, which I don't think is true. You can't compare it to say like lacrosse or like sailing. You can't compare it to soccer. You can't compare it to basketball. Like you have to do it to know it. Yeah, so my other sports that I do is lacrosse. I also do sailing during the summer, and I also coach sailing. The scholarship is the JT Hillegas Scholarship. It's for seniors only, and you have to be a multiple sport athlete. So I've heard a little bit of the history with how he was a legend, and he was just a part of everyone. Everyone loved him. I think it would be really cool to say that I got it. It's just overall just a good thing that they're doing. It brings everyone together, and I think it's just a good race to start off with, especially for us seniors this year. We all kind of dressed up in beach-themed stuff. It was just fun. It was just a great time this year. I want to major in media production, so I'm going to go more into the film side of that and do cinematography and documentaries. I will definitely be in a school where they're skiing at.
Weren't you like part of the homecoming court or something?
Oh wait, where'd you find this out from? Yeah, so I was a part of the prom court last year as a junior. I mean, I still have the crown. I like to wear the crown sometimes. I don't know, it's cool. It's like a legit crown. It's like silver, and I'm like, whoa, this is kind of cool and dope. Hey everyone, I'm Zoe Morgan. I'm a senior at Oconomowoc High School, and I'm a multi-sport athlete. And I'm this week's Fox 6 High School Hot Shot.
And get this, Zoe has received acceptance to the University of Montana and also has applied to the University of Utah and the University of Colorado. She'll find out in a couple weeks if she receives the JT Hillegas Scholarship. We'll be right back.
So what's ahead, you ask? The Bucs start the second half of their season. They're at the Pelicans. They come home to play the Heat, and then they're at the LA Clippers.
College hoops big this week. Wisconsin going to UCLA on Tuesday. On Friday, Marquette hosts Villanova, and UWM heads to Northern Kentucky.
And the Admirals on the ice, they enjoy a long homestand and take on the Ice Hogs on Wednesday. Then they have a back-to-back series Friday and Saturday against the Charlotte Checkers.
I believe they are home for the rest of the month.
Yes.
They are due to be home for the rest of the month.
Yeah.
They've gone a long time. All right, quick snaps on a couple of things here. We haven't talked about Wisconsin or Marquette on this show. You get Marquette.
They look good, set back with their first loss in conference, but I think this is a team that has a veteran presence, and they're coached under Shaka Smart. They'll be fine.
Wisconsin with Caleb Williams watching over USC.
High scoring and a fun team to watch this year. A lot could happen in March.
That is an eye-opening team for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Surprise to many. All right, we're not surprised you will win us tonight. See you Monday.